everyone, and welcome to the Uncle Phil's podcast. I'm your host, Uncle Phil, and I know I've been missing for a while, but I've had a cough for about 2 months. Now, you might hear this during the podcast. You might hear me coughing, and it's just annoying. So I haven't done this in a while, but I had to get on here today because I am really upset with what's going on with sports right now. I mean, let's face it. Right now, the football New York teams are horrible, okay? And I'm not including Buffalo. I know they're New York, and the two teams I'm talking about are New Jersey, but whatever. You can't even watch the game anymore. That's how bad it is, right? And everybody, has their own opinion of why it's bad, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But it's more than football. You got baseball, okay? I get a lot of Met fans right now that is screaming that, oh, we believe in Steve, but not anymore. He's a liar. He ain't spending money. He spent the most money in baseball and didn't make the playoffs last year. He's doing a reset, guys. Relax, okay? What the Dodgers are doing, though, I'm a little bit excited right now. I have to move the microphone away from me because I'm too loud. What the Dodgers are doing, though, that is disgusting, okay? To give a guy $700 million, and really, I think it's $20 million is all he got in cash, okay, for the 10 years. The rest of it is deferred payments. Brilliant by his agent, because what he did was he deferred it 10 years from now, and he won't be living in that scum hole of California that the income tax rate is so high, he can get it in the lower states that he's going to move to, because he will not be in California to collect that money. Brilliant on it. Brilliant, without a doubt. But how is that good for baseball? At one time, Bowie Kuhn said you cannot get rid of your players for money. It's not in the best interest of baseball, and stop the Oakland A's from getting rid of Joe Rudy to the Red Sox. And there was a bunch of other ones I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it was Vita Blue. I think it was all their stars. And they came out and said, no, you cannot do that in the best interest of baseball. How is it in the best interest of baseball that the LA Dodgers can get Ohtani, then go get Yamamoto because they have money they saved? They also traded and got Tyler Glasnow. How is it fair? Where's the competitive balance in baseball? I got somebody on the line right now that I'd like to speak to. He's a pretty knowledgeable guy in baseball. I usually lose my bets to him because of unforeseen circumstances, but this is John Ciccione. John, hi, say hello.
How you doing, Phil? Good to be with you.
Yes. Do you think I'm outrageous right now in what I'm saying about the Dodgers?
Yes, I do. And primarily because what I find interesting about baseball fans, especially baseball fans who are politically conservative, who believe in capitalism, except when it comes to sports.
Okay. Right.
I
know you're talking about me there. Okay, I get it. I've been called, my friends that who don't agree with me, they call me the liberal now because I am proceeding that everybody should get paid equally. That's not what I'm saying. Some people deserve money, more money than others, right? The superstars. What I'm saying is it's not good for the small market teams. In the 70s, you had the Cincinnati Reds, you had the Kansas City Royals, you had the Pittsburgh Pirates, you had, who else did you have? Pittsburgh.
Well, the Oakland A's,
right?
They're a very good example of a team that came from a fairly small market but was able to be very successful.
Okay. How are they supposed to compete? How is the San Francisco Giants going to be able to compete in that division right now? The San Diego Padres tried last year and they failed miserably, and now they're going to start selling off their players because they realize they're not going to compete.
The San Francisco Giants come from a fairly large market, and they have a lot of money. They've tried to sign players in the last 2 years, but have been unsuccessful. So I don't think they're a good example.
I understand that you can say that, but they're not going to be able to compete, is my point. That division,
why?
Arizona. What do you mean, why? Do you realize the lineup they're going to have, the pitching staff they're going to have, who can beat the Dodgers in a short series? And they're going to make the playoffs. It's not like they're built for a long season, too. And
The The Dodgers have been one of the largest spending teams in baseball over the last 10 years. Yet the only year they actually won anything
I
was
know, the strike team.
the COVID year.
I get it.
So-
The COVID year. All right, whatever.
Okay, the Yankees have spent tons of money. They have not been successful since 2009 in winning a championship.
Okay.
The Mets come from the largest market in the country. They get probably one of the largest TV contracts, even though they own SNY. But they can draw from the largest populated area in the country, and they have a huge TV market that they broadcast it or cablecast their TVs to their games to. Yet they have not been successful. So Chicago's another one.
Yeah.
They're a huge market. So I don't think you're making the case because you've got teams like Baltimore.
All right. That was the other team I was thinking about, Baltimore, okay? Baltimore is all these young kids that come up, right? They look like they're going to be really good. If they don't win within the next 2-3 years, they will have to get rid of all those players, John. This is why it's a problem. They can't afford the teams. The Cincinnati Reds, they got great young players again, right? They're not going to be able to hold on to them. Look at the Cleveland Indians. I'm going to call them the Indians. I don't care. I won't use the other name. They always have to sell their players off. They can't. I mean, that's how we got Lindor and the Mets, right? Because they can't do it.
Now, isn't that the capitalist system?
It can't go to sports. It can't go toward these teams. Entertainment wise, it can't go there because why? Because as a fan, is it the same watching the Mets as it was in the 70s?
So once again, you believe in capitalism, except when it comes to the entertainment venue that you like to watch.
It's needed because you grow an attachment to the players, right? As you grow up, and the
Those
Mets,
days are over.
right. And it's
Those
not good for the small market teams. Those teams will never win consistently again.
Well, no, but who does win consistently? Name one team in the last 10 years that has consistently won. If there's ever been a balance of power in baseball that has not been involving what you go back to the years that you're talking about. Go back to prior to the 1970s. The biggest team that dominated constantly was the New York Yankees. Now that you have the situation that you're fighting against, the Yankees aren't winning. So I don't think you're making your case. There's teams in the last 10 or 15 years that have won World Series that went 100 years without winning. The Chicago White Sox, the Chicago Cubs, the Kansas City Royals.
Okay, what happens to them?
The Houston Astros.
What happens to them?
Matter.
They can't consistently win, John. They win a year. They're good for 2 or 3 years, and then they have to sell off the players.
So what do you want
the Miami Marlins are the biggest example of that. They win a World Series and immediately sold off half the team.
Well, that you could blame the owner for. You want to go back? If you want to go back to the 1920s through the 60s, when the New York Yankees dominated
Do you
the
know
sport.
why they dominated, though, John? Because they had the money to go out and spend on scouting where other teams didn't. They got everybody. Then they put in a draft to combat that, right? Then the Yankees went through a losing streak, and then they started winning again during the free agency, right? Why? Because George Steinbrenner went out and ruined the game by overspending on players. If a player didn't work out, he just got another guy in that position.
It's known as capitalism, Phil. It's known as capitalism.
It doesn't work in sports. It don't work there. Hockey's a great example. Hockey's great sport. Football, they got a cap, right? The leagues that got a cap. And listen, I'm not saying that the teams on the bottom should get their money and keep it. There got to be a floor and a cap. In baseball, there should be a floor and a cap. I'm sorry. That's what makes the competitive balance. I get it. I'm speaking about competitive balance when you have a different winner almost all the time in baseball, right? I get it. I'm speaking out of both sides of my ass. I get it. But it's not fun to be a fan in those other teams. Listen, the Mets aren't winning Not because they don't spend, because they have poor management. They spend on the wrong players. How is Phil Bracco, a guy in Staten Island, how is he able to say, why are we spending money on Max Scherzer? This is going to not work for us. How are we spending money on Justin Verlander? How is it Phil Bracco know that and they don't know that?
Yeah, but I don't remember Phil Bracco saying it before it happened.
Oh no, I'm on record. Do not go there. I am on record. I was screaming on like Instagram Live or whatever, or Facebook Live, and I'm sitting there going, Jacob deGrom is going to opt out because you just signed Max Scherzer, who's 40 years old, 30-something years old at the time, high 30s, to a $40 million a year contract when his is in the 20s, and deGrom is a better pitcher. He will opt out. What happened? He opted out. Now, it helped us. He opted out because he was hurt, but you didn't know that at the time. I said, Max Scherzer, if you look at his playoff performance the year before we signed him, it was not good. And I don't think he was able to pitch in the World Series. I think he pitched one game and wasn't able to pitch anymore because he had a dead arm. He's older now, right? The same thing, like the next year. Yeah, did Scherzer pitch good for us? Yes. And then what happened? The playoffs, he fell apart, right? We had deGrom and Scherzer, and they didn't. We lost anyway to the Padres because he wasn't able to come to bat and pitch well. I think our best pitcher was Bassett in that playoff series. Then we're going to lose deGrom, and what do? Get another 40-year-old, Verlander. What does he do? He he tweaks a muscle in the side and misses the first month of the season. That's what you expect of a 40-year-old. It's not the right move.
Okay, Phil. But the other argument is, if you go back 7-8 years with the Mets, they had a stud pitching staff that was very young in Zach Wheeler, Steven Matz, Noah Syndergaard, Jacob deGrom, and they all got hurt young.
Yes, they did, and that's part of the problem of baseball is the pitch count, which they only make them pitch 100 pitches. They don't get a chance to stretch their arms out. They all get thrown 100 miles an hour in spring training. Jacob deGrom's throwing 100 miles an hour. You told me that. You said he's going to hurt himself, right? It's why, again, is John Ciccione of Long Island able to see that, and the Mets pitching coach is not able to see that, right? The Mets have always been reacting instead of being proactive. We had a problem with the bullpen. We go out and get K-Rod, right? It's always reacting.
That's what baseball is today, though. Every team reacts.
I'm not enjoying watching them. I won a bet with a friend of mine for lunch. We won 101 games. We came out. I said, I don't even think they're going to win 90 games this year. And he goes, you're crazy. He bet me a lunch, and I won. Why? Because I said we got two 40-year-old pitchers that are leading the league, right? They're going to lead our team. You got a guy coming over from Japan. We don't know what he's going to do. You know, bunch of injuries. The Mets always lead the league in injuries. How is it possible? Pete Alonso, you think we're going to be able to keep him?
Are they going to keep him?
Yes. I mean, he's got Scott Boras as an agent, and they're not even trying to sign him right now. I don't see how they're going to keep him.
I would be willing to make you a bet right now that they will keep him.
All right, well, I mean, I hope we do, because do you know last year, before he got hit with the pitch in his hand, he was on pace to beat Aaron Judge's record, right, from the year before. And then what happened? He got hit in the hand, and it was terrible for a month and a half. Terrible. Yeah,
but the paces are something that don't always necessarily work out anyway. I mean, there's been years where guys had 40-something home runs going into August, and they wind up flopping, and not because they got hit by a pitch.
No, all right. So I've been speaking out against our team because now we're becoming the Yankees of today's day and age. And, you know, we trade for Lindor, all right? We trade two young guys that may or may not be good. We didn't know, right? And we trade for Lindor, great shortstop. We give him I think it's a 10-year deal that he's going to be 39 when it's over, I believe. And what happens? We offer him $320 million. He says no. Okay, there's 9 free agent shortstops available at the end of the year. we'll wait until the end of the year. What do? No, we'll give you 340 or 344, whatever it is. Why? Why? We just set the market for the 9 shortstops. Why?
Well, there's an easy answer to that one, and that was because Steve Cohen had just recently come on board as the owner, and he wanted to show the fans that he was willing to spend.
But you misspent. All right, I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's not. He's a very good player. We signed him way too long, and we gave him too much money. If you wait to the end of that year, there were guys that were available that are good. Maybe not as good as Lindor, but almost as good, and they signed for a lot less.
Well, here's my question: if Steve Cohen is willing to pay $101 million in a luxury tax and still build his team, how does that negatively impact you?
Here's my point. Again, I'm being called cheap by all my friends.
That's not what I'm calling you. I'm just asking you.
They said, why do you care when it's not your money, right? Well,
I want to know how it impacts you.
It ruins the game. The fans of Cleveland, the fans of Cincinnati, the fans of Oakland, they got to move that franchise now. They can't compete.
Well, here's a question. The Mets are a big city team, just like big market team, just like the Yankees. Who's been to the World Series more recently? The Yankees, the Mets, or the Indians?
I'm going to have to say probably the Indians, right? They went there twice?
Yes.
Right? The Mets went once and the Yankees nothing, right?
That's correct.
Well, didn't the Yankees go once?
If I'm correct, 2016, the Mets were in the World Series against Kansas City, another small market team in 2015.
But Kansas City was good for 3 years. Then everybody had to go.
Okay, but that's sports. I mean, 2016.
It's fun for the fan. Come on. I love Jerry Kuzman. I love Tom Seaver. If they were leaving every 2-3 years, would I love them? No, I wouldn't care about them. Come on.
Well, I'm sorry to say this, but you are entering the period of your life of get off my lawn.
All right. I guess I'm cranky about this.
Yes. Get off my lawn, you kids.
Yeah, it's crazy that this is what the young people think this is normal. They're going into debt. The Dodgers in 10 years have got to pay this debt. What does that mean? Does that mean in 10 years they're gonna suck because they can't afford to play and they got to pay this guy?
Well, you know what? That's their problem when the time comes. They're doing the same thing that the government does. They're spending money they don't have.
Right, and how is that good? That's my point. It's not good. It's not good. It's bad.
And it's what people are doing in their personal lives. Why is credit card debt at all-time highs? Why is the government $33 trillion in debt? Why are they spending money we don't have? That's the way it is today. Unfortunately, that's the way it is.
And we got to say this is okay?
No, it's not okay, but you're not going to change.
I'm speaking out against it. I'm speaking out against it. That's what I'm doing. I'm letting you know this is not good. The Braves are a great organization, right? What do? They sign their young players. They don't go crazy. They made a trade for Matt Olson when Oakland had to get rid of him because they couldn't pay. And what happened? Today they just made a trade for Chris Sale, right? Because they needed a little more starting pitching. They have done it the right way. They've done it the right way.
Let me ask you a question. If you're so opposed to debt, and I know this is going a little bit, and I'm not talking about any specific people here. This is just a general question. Would you vote for the politician who says, I am going to cut programs and I'm going to increase taxes so that we get rid of debt? Would you vote for that guy?
I'm about this one. I am willing to give money if it went to the debt. I would, if you want to assess me money, I would pay it to go to the debt. They don't do that. They put it toward expanding spending. That is the problem we have with government. I don't know who I'd vote for in that situation because I don't actually hear that person ever.
All right, let me ask you this question, and I won't point it at you. Let me ask you, how many people in this country do you think would vote for a politician who says, I have to cut programs and I have to increase taxes to eliminate our debt so our grandchildren will survive in this world. How many of them do you think would get elected?
I mean, they gotta massage the way
what?
they say that, John. They can't come out and say it like that, right?
I'll make it easy for you. Nobody would get elected. Nobody.
Well, they gotta massage that. They can't actually say it like that, but it doesn't change the fact, right? And I'm going back to baseball because I'm trying to stay there. It doesn't change the fact that the small market teams are basically they had to expand the playoffs to keep those markets entertained. Now,
the small market teams are making the playoffs.
yes,
Arizona.
They expanded the playoffs. Do you know if they would have expanded the playoffs in the 80s, the Mets would have made it every year, and with that team probably would have won more than one World Series, right? But because it was the way baseball is supposed to be, is you got a 162-game season to decide who's the best at each division, right? That's what it's about. Now we got wild cards and wild cards. This is not baseball.
No, they have to figure out a way to generate more revenue.
Right, because they got to pay these people the money. That's why.
I understand that,
and that's why they got to do this for the small market teams, so they don't say, oh, we can't make the playoffs, right? And now it's backfired a little bit because they've actually won in the playoffs, which is amazing.
Well, you know what? I'm going to get back to my original point that I was making a little while ago that you don't want to go, but I'm going to say it. Baseball is a microcosm what our general society is about today, which is spend money that you don't have and don't worry about it. We'll figure out what we got to do to just survive. And the way they survive is increase wild card teams, you do whatever you can, sell more jerseys with guys' names on the back that you can sell for $150, charge $20 for a beer. And listen, if we're stupid enough to go and spend that kind of money, shame on us. We're the suckers. Me, I can't even be bothered going to. I'm not going to go to a game, spend $30 to park my car, spend $50 minimum for a ticket, buy overpriced food that. So you know what? It's going to collapse eventually. That's all. If people decide that they don't want to do it anymore, I don't know. I see people are paying $5,000-$10,000 to go see a Taylor Swift concert, and yet we're hearing that nobody's got money and the economy sucks.
Well, like I said, my baseball rant is pretty much over. I don't expect the Mets to win 90 again this year. I do think they potentially could be better than last year because of people like McNeil having a comeback year and Marte actually playing this year. Alonso not getting hurt.
Can I comment on that?
Well, let me just finish. You got Bate, his swing and the minor leagues was so good. I find it hard to believe if it does happen where you come up to the majors and don't play well. But I don't think that's going to happen to him. I think eventually he'll catch on, and Alvarez is going to be better, right? So to me, the natural betterment of these players is going to make them better. But you need starting pitching, and Giolito just got signed by the Red Sox. They're running out of pitchers now. So,
well, for some reason, the Mets don't want to go after the two prime guys that are out there right now in Montgomery and a Cy Young Award winner that they don't want to go after, which I don't blame them for on that. It's probably going to cost too much money, and he's got some question marks.
You're talking about Blake Snell. Okay, now Blake Snell has been good 2 years out of 5. Is that a guy you want to spend a lot of money on?
Well, I don't want to spend it because, A, he walks a lot of guys. B, he very rarely goes past 5 innings.
Well, that's today's game.
What's that?
Today's game is basically 6 innings.
Yeah, but at least give me 6.
Yeah, I know. Well, part of the reason he left Tampa Bay was because they took him out of a playoff game when he was pitching pretty well. And I think it was the 4th inning. They took him out of the game. And he's like, I'm not getting a chance to pitch here. they're kicking me out. But but again, I don't know what to tell you.
The game has changed, and not for the better.
Yeah, I think Montgomery's a good pitcher, without a doubt. He's pitched in New York. I think he's a pretty good player to go. I told you there's a guy, a Cuban guy that has played out in Japan. I love him, 27 years old. I think it's Uriel Rodriguez might be his name. There's another Japanese guy that's coming over, and again,
Phil,
we don't know how they're going to be when they come over. It's a different ball. They pitch every 6 days over there.
Wait for a second. I mean, how much do you really know about this Cuban guy who's in Japan?
Just what I read.
What do you know? Have you seen him pitch?
No, just what I read. I did see him pitch in the World Baseball Classic. I wasn't paying attention to him then, but I saw clips of him, and he pitched very well. He's not the dominant guy like Yamamoto. His ERA is like 3.2, which is, maybe high. But he's not going to demand the money that Yamamoto got, so...
So your goal would be put together a bunch of mediocre guys who don't cost a lot.
That's not what I'm saying, John. This is a short-term thing until we can recoup some of the money. We're still paying money for these players that we let go.
I got a suggestion. You should change your name to Phil Wilpon.
Oh, that's a dagger to my heart. That's terrible. Terrible. Because I want to be fiscally responsible. I don't understand you. A man that preaches about responsibility, fiscal responsibility, you're going to now tell me that I'm a Wilpon?
No, I would want to be fiscally responsible too if I was. But you're stuck in a situation where it's very difficult to be that and still win.
Not if you do it right. If you pick the right players, look, Tampa Bay's always got a good team. They don't win the World Series, but they've made it there once or twice, right? They always make the playoffs.
I heard you say nothing but positive things about Juan Soto, and when he went to San Diego, you said, wow, they've got a super team, they're going to clean up, and they didn't do it. They didn't even make the playoffs.
No.
They barely made it to 500.
They did beat the Mets in that year in the playoffs.
2 years ago, they beat the Mets.
Yes.
Last year, they
wait, hold on. I think they beat the Dodgers too, didn't they?
I believe they knocked out the Dodgers, but then they got...
Okay,
now...
But last year they didn't do well. I don't know what happened to that team last year. They didn't do it.
They had a team that had a stacked lineup. They brought in the Cy Young Award winner Blake Snell. They brought in one of the top, if not the top, relief pitcher in Josh Hader, and they barely made it to 500.
Yeah. Well, like I said, now they're going to start selling off the players. Juan Soto went to the Yankees for not even a great return, especially what they paid for Juan Soto. And you're going to see more and more of them start being sold off because that team, that market cannot consistently spend that kind of money.
Well, you're missing the big point of the fact that they lost their TV contract because is it Diamond Sports that has the contract for like 15 teams on their local contracts has pretty much gone under. So they're not collecting that money. That's why they had to take out a letter.
And their owner died.
What's that?
The owner died.
No, the owner died, yeah, but that had nothing to do with the fact that Diamond Sports pretty much has gone bankrupt and is no longer paying them TV money.
And here's the point, okay? Here's the point. You should be operating and different. Their businesses are different. They should not be merging them together, okay? You got when you own the baseball network like SNY, right? When you own the stadium, they're all different, okay? They should each be operating on their own business. You can't be borrowing from Peter to pay Paul because then when Peter don't have the money, you're in trouble.
Well, let's return back to the San Diego Padres for 1 second because I wanted a follow-up question for you, and that is, are you telling me that they only finished, I think it was 82 and 80 for the year?
Yes,
right?
Yes, they didn't have a great year.
Okay, is it because management made the wrong choices of players?
No. It wasn't that. They just had bad years. Some guys. They didn't have the years that you expected them out of.
So then that kind of destroys the whole point of you saying that it's management's fault.
I'm really talking about the Mets. When I said that, the Mets have consistently gone after the wrong guy. You go way back when the Mets didn't get Matt Holliday. What did they do? They got Jason Bay, right? They've consistently gotten the wrong guy. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, if you go way back, I remember the Phil Bracco that I knew back then was saying, "Big great, they got Mo Vaughn, they got Jeremy Burnett, they got."
And you were the only man in New York that said this is a bad moves, and you were right. You were the only man in New York at the time that thought they were bad moves. Mo Vaughn was a .330 hitter with power. Came to New York.
Unfortunately, he not only hit .330, but he weighed .330.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line, right? The Ambriano brothers, Rudy Maggi, they were laughing at our fight that day. Everybody in New York said this is great. You brought Jeff D'Amico in. You had Jeremy Burnett, the guy hit. He just stopped hitting when he came to the Mets. Then he leaves and he hits again, and not average, but home runs.
Wait a second. Jeremy Burnett was the guy, and the point I made back then was that even though he could hit 20 or 30 home runs, he would strike out 150 times easily.
Well, you know what? That's today's game.
Well, no, it wasn't as bad then.
Right, but that's today's game.
But now we're going back on and talking about things that probably most people don't even remember.
No, and my point with there was they made the moves. We thought they were right. They ended up being wrong once again. This is what has happened constantly. You go to the World Series in 2015. What do? You let your MVP of the playoffs go, Daniel Murphy, and sign a replacement guy, Neil Walker. That made no sense. You lost the heart and soul. Then Cespedes gets hurt. You had to sign Cespedes, right? After the year he had with the Mets, and he got hurt. What are you gonna do? The Met pitchers that you talk about, the young Met pitchers, they got hurt because of the way they're being trained. That it happens all the time. It's 10-year contracts for a pitcher is crazy.
And it doesn't just happen to Mets pitchers, though. I mean, look what happened to the Dodgers. They lost Walker Buehler this year, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They lost a bunch of guys. They had no pitchers left at the end of the year.
Right.
Right. And again, they didn't win partly because of that.
And the bizarre thing is, anybody who's going to tune in on opening day and watch them when they call out the starting lineups for the teams and they have them run out of the dugout to the first baseline the first day of the game, watch how many. This is absurd. It takes 5 to 10 minutes just for them to announce people who are like the weight training expert and the cybermetrics trainer, and they've got so many coaches today, and yet people are getting hurt beyond whatever they got hurt in the past.
It doesn't make any sense, right? It's a lot of weightlifting, and it's a lot of overthrowing, and really, it's going on from Little League on. They're not expanding the kids' arms. They're not letting them throw enough, right? That they're so worried about injury that they're causing the injuries.
All right, so how do you change something like that? How do you change something like that?
Well, Nolan Ryan tried to do it. I don't know what happened. He said, you know what, we're not going to put those inning counts, and we'll make them try and make them go 9 innings. I don't know what happened. I don't know, is he even in charge over there anymore in Texas?
No, I don't think he has anything to do with it anymore. And you know what? It's very difficult for one team out of 30 to make that change and make it effective for the entire sport, because by the time these guys, they wanted to start it out in the minor leagues, by the time they make it to the major leagues, they're usually dispersed elsewhere to other teams.
Yeah. Max Scherzer blamed a lot of the injuries this year on the pitch count. And not the pitch count, the pitch clock.
Which, by the way, they're reducing the time on it again for this year by a couple of seconds.
Right. So basically what happens is those guys go out there and throw gas. they're hurting themselves because they don't have a chance to recoup their strength. They're just, boom, I got to throw it in 15 seconds. Yeah, it's a little crazy. I'm sorry. I don't agree. I understand there's an issue with the games being too long. I got it, and they had to do something. I don't like the moves that they did. I just think that you want to do that in a regular season. You can't do it in the playoffs. You got to let these guys recoup. Or they're going to have to learn how to pitch differently instead of throwing all hard.
So if you're concerned about the fans wanting to follow the teams and getting upset because they're losing players after a couple of years that they go and become free agents or whatever, I think you also should be upset over the fact that if you don't do something, if they didn't do something to reduce the times of the games like they did, and they start these games at 8 o'clock at night in the playoffs, and they're not over till midnight, there are no young fans that are watching these games.
Well, it's all about the money because they got to pay these players. They got to get more money, John. This is why I say we're ruining the game. It's exponentially. It happens all over the place.
It's a short, but everything's done with short-term goals. That's the problem. That's the problem.
And then they got to react, and they got to figure out a way around the problem that they're creating. Right? That's what happens.
Think of the gimmicks they have to come up with in order to make money. I mean, right now, it used to be if you were involved at all in gambling, you're out of the sport. Now Major League Baseball's teamed with DraftKings to get people to vote to bet on things like how many home runs, how many parlays are they going to put out there for this guy's going to get this home run, this guy's going to hit a double, this guy's going to at least strike out 5 guys. It's ridiculous. It's a joke. Mm-hmm. It's a complete joke.
Anyway, we've got issues with all the sports. I did promise everybody I was going to just give a little spiel on the Jets. I know you had a little bit of a time thing. We were on here already 35 minutes or so. Oh. So I'll give you the option of listening in if you want it. I'm just going to give my little spiel on why the New York teams are so bad.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So... all right, everybody was so excited. Aaron Rodgers come to the Jets. They said, wow, we got a chance to win this year. We have a good defense. We got Aaron Rodgers. We got Breece Hall coming back from injury. So we'll get a guy, Devon Cook. Everything looked good. You know what they forgot to do? An offensive line. They forgot to get an offensive line. How do you go into the season relying on a 37-year-old Dwayne Brown, and Mekhi Becton, who's been hurt the last 2-3 years? How is that what you go into the season with? This is the problem. They brought in these guys that Aaron Rodgers wanted that weren't that good on his receivers, and the backup quarterback, Boyle, is not good. He's released already. They had to make better moves. This is on management. 4 plays into the season, Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles. The season's out the window. They're going to blame it on Zach Wilson. Is Zach Wilson great? No, he's not. But you know what's happening? We got to get another quarterback again. Every 2 to 3 years, we got to draft a quarterback because they don't give him a chance to develop anymore. This is a problem in football because they're spending so much money on the quarterbacks. They got to go. First-round draft picks got to play. We got to play. Because you know what? They only got a 5-year rookie contract, and then they got to re-sign if he has one good year, and then you got to re-sign him on one good year. That's the problem with football, right? I wouldn't give up on Zach Wilson. I don't think you can keep him anymore because of what's happening to the team. But now you're going to go out and get another young quarterback in the draft. You're not getting the linemen. The Giants are the same thing. The Giants went in. They got Saquon Barkley. You gave Daniel Jones all this money. You didn't improve the line, right? He gets beat up. He hurts his neck again. He hurts his knee. The guy's career might be over from getting beat up. You got to build from the inside out. Don't give me the quarterback till you got a line. Then you get me the quarterback. And let him learn a year or two. This is the problem that we're having with these teams in New York. It's insane. The 49ers, they picked the last pick of the draft is their quarterback. And they're predicted to go to the Super Bowl because they built the team around the guy. That's what you got to do. And I'm just sick and tired of watching this. It's so hard to watch football. Yeah, I got the games off half the time. The middle of the game, halftime, I'm shutting the games off. I can't watch it. It's terrible. And the same thing. It's all about gambling, right? Yeah, I try to watch the Giants or the Jets. I go over to my family's house, my in-laws' house, and they had the red zone on. You can't watch the game. It's going from one game to game to game to game to game, and I can't watch the game and enjoy it. Anyway, that was my spiel on that.
Hey, Phil, can I just say, I want to thank you for allowing me to listen in because it allows me to give you a suggestion that you change your podcast from Uncle Phil to Uncle Cranky.
You know what? It's funny. 5 to 7 years ago, you were acting like that, and I was like, oh, I'm making fun of you.
Yeah, well, now you're there.
Uncle Cranky. All right. Anyway, that's all I got to say today. I'm there's two other sports, but the jokes again. The Nets. How can you watch that team? They go out. They give all their draft capital to get these great superstars. They don't win. They get rid of them. They got to rebuild. Every year, that's what happens with every 3-4 years. That's what happens. And then they can't because there's no draft picks. I don't know what they're going to do. The Knicks, they made a trade today. They traded for a guy who's 27 years old. I don't know his name. He's supposed to be pretty good. They trade Barrett and quickly and a draft pick. I don't know. The Knicks were built incorrectly. They don't have enough big men. This guy's a forward. Maybe it'll work out, but you're trading Barrett, who was the number 3 pick of the draft a couple years ago, and quickly, who could be a superstar down the road. I don't know. I don't know if I like that deal or not, but hopefully this guy is good. Otherwise, that team's not going to go anywhere because the injuries to their center. It's part of basketball, but you got to build the team some big men. Maybe not anymore. Everything's 3-point plays, but that's the problem there. Everybody knows I'm an Islander fan, and they keep throwing games away. They get a point, not the 2 points. They're still in a good position to make the playoffs and do well. But I think they've got to shore up their defense, which they tried. They made a couple of trades. Let's see what happens. I'm still optimistic about hockey. That's about it. And any last words, John?
No, not really. I just want to wish Uncle Cranky a Happy New Year.
You too, John. All right, and we'll get together next year.
Sounds good.
All right, take care.
Right, bye-bye.